Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 6, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. I think that's right. I've had to do like 3 different takes of this because I keep struggling with the title of this, and quite frankly, it sounds like one of those pretentious wordy Star Trek titles. Like, what was that one in the original series I hated? I don't even remember. It's like 2 sentences long. Anyways, before I get into my thoughts of the episode itself, let me give you my standard spoiler warning. If you have not seen up to the end of Season 1, Episode 6 of Strange New Worlds, then you should not be watching this video. Okay, so the winning streak ends. I think it was only a matter of time before the show faltered a little bit. They had done everything extraordinarily well. Even some episodes where the story formula or the trope is not something I particularly like, but they still did it extraordinarily well. They were just really hitting on all cylinders. And while the show still is really doing the characters really well, and the character interactions and the character stories, I think, are still pretty strong for the most part, the storytelling and the plot of this episode was not done particularly well, and it's the first time that the show has faltered in that way. But it was only a matter of time. I just could not believe that this show would produce 10 episodes of that level of quality, that high level of quality of writing through the first 5 episodes, which had been, I just find it impossible that any show would be able to pull that off. So I forgive a misstep here and there. That's totally expected, quite frankly. It would be shocking if there wasn't one. And this was the misstep for sure. And I'll get into the details as I get through the different storylines with the different characters. But basically, I think that this was, yet again, it was another a combination of a bunch of different old Star Trek episodes. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that as long as they execute it well. Such as, what was episode 3 was the virus episode. Last week was the comedy episode. Both things that have been done many times. Both things that I don't particularly prefer, but they just executed so well, and the writing was so strong that I still ended up giving each of those episodes a 7, which is still a pretty decent rating. Because they just pulled it off so well. Here, they did a combination of different old Star Trek episode plots and didn't pull it off. So I think, there's a couple different things going on here. There's the old flame. We would see Kirk with that a lot, who turns out to be the villain. I do recall that from The Next Generation. I'm thinking of Counselor Troy and The Price. With the dude that dude was a slamble anyway. I don't know why Counselor Troy was sleeping with him. And I feel like Captain Picard may have had one, but I'm not quite. We'll always have Paris? I don't remember. Did that chick end up being evil? I don't think so. I don't know. I feel like there have been some episodes all throughout Star Trek that have had that kind of trope, and mostly with Kirk. And then there's the utopian society that has this secret dark side, and the reason why it's a utopian society is because something evil and twisted and dark is happening underneath the surface. We have seen that a few times in Star Trek, and just in fiction in general. It's not just limited to Star Trek. But you know what? If it was well written and well executed, then I would still call it a quality episode. But since it was not, then it just does not go over very well. So let me go ahead now and get into the details. I'll start with the Captain Pike storyline, as this was an episode mostly focused on him. So let me start with the Captain Pike storyline, and as I said at the top, the character stories are still strong. I still love Captain Pike as a character. I think he's well developed. I still love Anson Mount as an actor in this role, and it starts off well enough when the Old Flame beams aboard. There's this really cute interaction between the two of them that I thought was kind of humorous. And just a little side note, I have to point this out, it has nothing to do with anything, but Captain Pike refers to his first officer as Lieutenant Commander Chin Riley. I had always assumed she was a full-on commander. Now, it's not unusual for lieutenant commanders to be first officers. It's happened before. In fact, when we get the flashback in the first episode of Deep Space Nine with Cisco on the USS Saratoga, and he's the first officer as a lieutenant commander. And we've seen other examples of it. So it's not unprecedented. I was just surprised. I thought she was a full commander. But that has nothing to do with anything. Anyways, so yeah, it was fine. It seemed like it could be possibly a cutesy episode, but then it turns out that that's not at all what it is. And I think one of the faults of the episodes is that it focused too much on this romance without really developing this race of people as a whole. I think there was a lot of lacking in that character development of who these people are. Before we get to the reveal of this dark side, that they're sacrificing this kid, I needed to establish how utopian they are, like how wonderful and beautiful they are. I was a little bit confused. I guess that they have built this terraformed this thing over top of lava and all this horrible, hostile environment, whatever. I think they mentioned lava. I needed more emphasis on that. For the reveal of the dark side to really work, even if that still would be a trope that has been done a lot. If they had written it well and executed it, I could stomach it a little more. But I just feel like I didn't really see that this was a utopian society. I was told that it was, sort of, not even really told that much. So that made the reveal have much less impact. I didn't find it impactful at all. I was just like, yeah, I knew they were doing something evil. I mean, that was pretty obvious. So, but even knowing that they were doing something evil, they could have still made it better by showing that contrast of how they present themselves versus what they really are. And I didn't see that. Also, there was no voice from the other side. If we have these rebels or whatever, we needed to hear from them. And it's fine if they are presented at first as, they're the bad guys, but then we get their perspective. And then we find out, what's really happening. And maybe their perspective is something actually that our crew is more likely to agree with. And now that also has been done in Star Trek several times. I'm thinking of the first season TNG episode, Symbiosis, comes to mind. But again, I'm not so much complaining about redoing things as just how they are executed. So we don't hear from the other side at all, and I feel like we're missing half of the equation. So that was a detriment to this plot. And so we have this father of the son, the first servant, who is secretly wants to try to save his son, doesn't want him to be sacrificed. Could have maybe mentioned something, I don't know, to Captain Pike. Like, why did he not do that? Like, I don't know. It's really, so the show could happen, I guess. That's really, really odd. And again, so we don't get that other point of view. I would have loved to see him ask for asylum at the beginning of the episode, and then we have a whole different episode where there's this dilemma and Pike being stuck in the middle. And this is something we've seen before in Star Trek, but I think it could have been, if it was well written, it could have been very interesting. Where Pike is kind of in the middle of these two factions. I think it would have made a lot more sense for the father to ask for asylum immediately as soon as that lady was out of earshot. But they chose instead to focus on this cutesy romance between Pike and this lady. And I think that was a mistake. I actually don't think we needed the romance here. I think it would have been a much more interesting episode if we just disregard that and focus on that dilemma between these two sides and get to hear from both of the sides of the issue. And yeah, if they had done that, it would have revealed the twist early on. But did we need this twist, really? I don't know. I don't know. So, although Anson Mount is always incredible, I always like Pike. I like that we brought up his future again, but I don't know. I don't think. I think Pike was a little misused in this episode. I don't think we needed that romance. Now, as for her, him bringing up his future and her saying, "Oh well, we could probably cure that when that happens. So just come see us." And of course, listen, she's evil. That's never going to happen. And we know he's going to just end up in that wheelchair until he goes to Talos 4, or whatever that planet was called. The one with the death penalty. The death penalty? Yeah, that planet. So I hope they don't do this ever again. Well, maybe if you do this, then maybe you could be cured when you get in the wheelchair. Like, or maybe in some other episode, they'll be like, oh, look, we have this cure for you that once you get into the wheelchair, it'll instantly cure you. But, oh no, it's on that shuttlecraft that just blew up and now it's lost forever. Oh, well, like, don't do that. Don't do that. We know what Pike's fate is. Don't pretend that it's anything other than that. Don't hold this carrot up like, oh, well, maybe this would stop it from happening, or maybe this would cure him. We know that's not going to happen, so don't even pretend that it is. So I will allow them to get away with this once, but I never want to see them do that ever again. So that was bullshit. Then I want to get into this conversation that Pike has with this lady at the end when she reveals her truths about how they plugged this kid into the planet or whatever, and Pike is, or she tells Pike rather, that, don't you guys do the same with your children in poverty? I thought that the whole point of Roddenberry's utopian future was that they don't. I thought it has been said many, many, many times throughout Star Trek that poverty has been eradicated. So the answer is no. We don't have that issue. It was a false dichotomy. It was incorrect. And I think in a meta way, the show maybe was trying to compare that to our present day, but it makes no sense for her to say those things to Pike, who is in a society where supposedly, as we've been told a million times throughout Star Trek, that poverty has been eradicated. So that makes absolutely no sense for her to say that without Pike giving any kind of response. And actually, her whole argument was faulty, quite frankly. And I would have liked to have seen Pike give any kind of response. This is, as much as I love Pike, this is where I miss Jean-Luc Picard, because Jean-Luc Picard would have launched into a nice speech right here. There should be a good Jean-Luc Picard speech right here that tells her why she's full of shit. Because even if that were true, it is not the same thing. It is not an accurate analogy. And I would have loved to have seen Pike put her in her place, and he doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I think this episode took a wrong turn in a lot of ways. So that's the main storyline. Let me kind of touch on the other two storylines as well. All right, let's get into the storyline involving Lon, Noonien Singh, and Uhura. And I really like Leon. I really like Uhura. I did not like this storyline all that much. I just get really annoyed by this whole rule number 1 of security, do this, rule number 2. And the most irritating one was when they were doing it in front of that dude. I think, was it the father dude? I don't remember who it was anymore. Where she was like, oh, well, you've just touched on rule number 7, which just happens to be chronologically right after the last rule I just told her about when you weren't even in the room. That was really irritating. Now, I find that whole trope really, really irritating. I did not care for that. at all. And as has been pointed out in other YouTube videos, reviews that I've watched, why does everyone act like these are well-established rules and everybody knows about it when Leon came on the ship at the same time as Uhura? This doesn't make any sense. And actually, it just occurred to me recently who Leon replaced. Nan. Remember, Nan was the chief security of the Enterprise. She went over Discovery and ended up in the future, and then she came back in season 4, and she's still around, but she's in the 32nd century now. That's who Leon replaced, because they didn't, then they went on hiatus for a little while, and then they didn't have a security officer in between. So she's brand spanking new in any event. So how does she have all these rules established that everyone else seems to know about? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But the whole rules thing was just stupid. I don't like it. So that's all I really have to say about that. Let me get into the manga of it all. I still would like to see an episode that really focuses on this. They keep trying to put this as a side plot in someone else's episode, and I would rather see an episode that just focuses on this, and we might get that still in this season. I think we should get some sort of conclusion to this storyline at some point. Like, let's just find a cure for this girl. Like, I don't want to drag this out for so long. Yeah, it wasn't as bad though in this episode as it was when I complained about the previous episode. I believe that was episode 3, when it was all about Una, and then we got a nice ending for Una, and that's where the episode should have ended. And then we tack on this ending about this side character in a side plot that didn't have to do with the main story. So I didn't appreciate that in that episode. Here it worked better, but I would still prefer to see this as its own episode, as the main plot of an episode. By the way, where's Hemmer? So is Hemmer just like this side character, even though he's the chief engineer? He's been gone for 2 full episodes, and he's barely appeared before that. I love that character. More Hemmer. More Hemmer. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about this episode. Let me go ahead and give my rating out of 10. So 1 would be the lowest possible score, and 10 would be the highest possible score. My rating for Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 6, I'm not even going to try to say that title again. I don't even remember it anymore. But my rating for this episode is a 5. Right down in the middle, but that is definitely on the low end of ratings that I give to modern Trek episodes, Season 2 of Picard aside. But typically when I do Lower Decks reviews and Discovery reviews, like a 6 might be the lowest that I would go. I don't really go lower than that. Outside of Season 2 of Picard, honestly, I don't think there's been a whole lot of really horrible episodes in modern Trek. There's not been a Code of Honor or like a Rivals from Deep Space Nine. Certainly not in Strange New Worlds yet, and I don't know if we'll ever get an episode that bad in Strange New Worlds. I hope not, but we are. The odds are that we're likely to get some less than stellar episodes every once in a while, because you just can't produce quality episodes every single week, and I wouldn't expect them to. So here's their misstep. We may get one more this season, but I still feel like based on the quality of the first 5, we're going to end up coming out of this season feeling really good. Okay, that does it for this week's review. Please join me next week as I review episode 7 of Season 1 of Strange New Worlds. We're going through this season pretty quickly. Soon it's going to be over. Okay, please join me. Please subscribe. Hit the like button. Hit the bell for notifications. I will see you soon. Goodbye.